Kindergarten, it's Miss Rennis again, and today we're going to be talking about fictional stories. And remember, fiction stories are made up, imaginary, or pretend, so the author uses their imagination. And they can be crazy, they can be funny, they can be serious, but they are fiction. So the writer uses their imagination to make these fantastic stories. And we know they're fiction because we can look right here on that spine label. And this has an E for the everybody section, so we know it's a fiction book. And then it has the first three letters of the author's last name. So if you look at the bottom here, Judy Schanzer, it's S-C-H. And on our spine label, we see that it is S-C-H. So we know this goes on the S shelf in our fiction section. And this is our book today, SkippyjonJones by Judy Schanzer. She wrote and illustrated the story. Well, this is kind of a crazy story, and fiction stories aren't always crazy. Sometimes they can be serious, sometimes they can be sad, but they are the author's imagination, and the author makes up those stories to entertain us. And our story today will definitely entertain you. At least I hope it will. So let's read SkippyjonJones. Oh, and here we have SkippyjonJones. That's our title page. He's looking at that bird. Because he wants to play with the bird. Every morning, SkippyjonJones woke up with the birds. And if you see, you can see him right there. His little ears are poking out of the bird's nest. And this did not please his mother at all. "Get yourself right down here now, Mr. Kitten Britches," ordered Mama Junebug Jones. "No self-respecting cat ever slept with a flock of birds," she scolded, "or ate worms, or flew, or did his laundry in Mrs. Doohickeys' bird bath." The lecture went on and on as usual. "You've got to do some serious thinking before you leave this room, Mr. Fluffy Pants," said his mother, "about just what it means to be a cat. Not a bird, not a mouse or a grouse, not a moose or a goose, not a rat or a bat. You need to think about what it means to be a Siamese cat. And stay out of your closet," she added, closing the bedroom door. But once he was alone, SkippyjonJones began to bounce and bounce and bounce on his big boy bed. "Oh, I'm SkippyjonJones and I bounce on my bed, and 1 or 6 times I land on my head." And on his way down to earth, from my gigantic big bounce, SkippyjonJones shot past his bedroom mirror. "Holy guacamole!" exclaimed SkippyjonJones. "What was that?" So up he went again, and again it appeared. Then, using his very best Spanish accent, he said, "My ears are too big for my head. My head is too big for my body. I am not the Siamese cat. I am a Chihuahua!" Back on land, SkippyjonJones climbed into his toy box and rifled through some of his old junk. After he put on his mask and sword and climbed onto his mouse, SkippyjonJones began to sing in a muy soft voice. "My name is Scapito Fresquito. I fear not a single bandito. My manners are mellow. I am sweet like the jello. I get the job done, yes, intito." But back in the kitchen, Jujubee, Jezebel, and Jillyboo Jones were helping Mama Jumba Jones make lunch. "Can SkippyJon come out of his room now?" asked Jujubee. "No," answered Mama Junebug Jones. "Mr. Fluffernutter is still thinking." In fact, Skippy John wasn't thinking about being a Siamese cat at all. With a walk into his closet, his thoughts took him down a lonesome desert road, far, far away in old Mexico. Not long into his journey, a mysterioso band of Chihuahuas appeared out of the dust. "Ay, caramba! Who goes there?" asked SkippyjonJones. "We go by the name of Los Chimichongos," growled Don Diego, the biggest of the small ones. "Who are you?" "I am El Skippito, the great sword fighter," said SkippyjonJones. The smallest of the small ones spoke up. "Why the mosquito, dude?" asked Perquito Tito. "Shh, I go incognito," said Skippito. "Do you like rice and beans?" asked Pintalito. "See, I love mice and beans," said Skippito. "Oh, he might be the dog of our dreams," whispered Rosalita. "Perhaps," said Tia Mia, "if he knows the secret password." Leaning towards Don Diego, El Skippito half sneered, half spoke the secret password into the Chihuahua's very large ear. Chipito! "Bless you," said Don Diego. "Gracias," said Skippito. "Then it is true," declared Don Diego. "Yip, yippee, yippito. It is the end of Alfredo Bazito. Skippito is here. We have nothing to fear. Adios to the bad Bumblebeeto." Then all of a sudden, the chimichangas went crazy loco. First, they had a fiesta. Then they took a siesta. But after waking up, the chimichangas got down to serious business. Using his paw, Don Diego drew a picture in the sand of the great Bumblebeetle for Skippito to see. A hush grew over the chimichangas so great that one could hear a whisker drop. "Alfredo Busito," whispered the crowd. "El blimpo bumblebeeto bandito." "See," said Paquito Tito, "the bandito's reels are frijoles." "Not your beans!" cried Skippito, outraged. "See," Paquito continued, "red beans, black beans, Boston bacon, blue, cocoa, coffee, kidney beans, pinto, and jelly too." "And now he comes for us," Perquito added. "Por qué?" asked Skippito. "Because we are full of beans too." Then Don Diego stood tall and in his most somber voice declared, "Yo quiero frijoles." "Huh?" asked Skippito. "The dude just wants his bean back," said Perquito Tito. "And you are the dog for the job." "Me?" asked Skippito. Then all of the chimichangas turned towards Skippito, the great sword fighter. But poor Skippito had no time for a plan, because in the blink of an eye, a gigantic shadow darkened the landscape. The chimichangas scattered in all directions. "Vamonos, Skippito, or it is you, the Bumblebeeto Walito!" they cried. Skippito stood his ground, but his legs shimmered and shook like jello, and his teeth chattered like castanets. Then, in the muy soft voice, he said, "My name is Skippito Frisquito. I fear not a single bandito." But Alfredo Bazito flew straight for Skippito until the bean-eating bandito hovered only inches away from the great sword fighter's face. "Holy frijoles!" cried SkippyjonJones. Then and he thrusted his sword in the air. Suddenly, pop, went the bandito, landing on Skippito's sword, and quicker than one could say chimichanga cheese and crackers, every kind of bean came spilling out of Alfredo Pizzito, the bumble-beetle bandito. Then all the doggies burst into song. Yip, yippee, yippito. Our hero is El Skippito. He's the dog of our dreams who delivered our beans. And now we can make our burritos. But back at home, there was such a ruckus coming from Skippy John's room that Mama Jumbo Jones and the girls had to just find out what was going on. They raced down the hall to Kitty Boy's room. Banquito, Crashito, Papito, Skippito! Just in time to see Skippy John's closet exploding. Then out flew Candy, beanbag doggies, and the Kitty Boy with his birthday piñata on his head. SkippyjonJones! Everyone cried. Hola, muchachas, he said in a muy soft voice. Mama Junebug Jones lifted up Skippy John and covered his head with furry purry kisses. What am I going to do with you, Mr. Cocoa Pugs? She scolded. That night, when he was supposed to be going to sleep, Skippy John began to bounce and bounce and bounce on his big boy bed. Oh, I'm SkippyjonJones with a mind of my own and a bounce on my bed for hours. I know I'm a cat, but forget about that. Say good night, SkippyjonJones, called his mama. Buenas noches, mis amigos, said SkippyjonJones. I hope you enjoyed our fiction book about SkippyjonJones. And of course we know it's fiction because the cats can't talk, and also cats don't think that they're chihuahuas. But we know fiction books are made up, imaginary, and pretend. And today you are going to do a worksheet, and you are going to look at the two books, and you're going to be coloring in the fiction book cover. And with fiction books, you can make them as crazy as you want, or you can make them look more realistic if you want. But that's the great thing about fiction, is you can really use your imagination. Boys and girls, I'll see you next week. Bye.